Very good. Good afternoon and good morning to those who are seeing us from the Americas. This is Ezio Filippi speaking. I'm with ChemOrbis Italy office, who is looking after Europe's operations. ChemOrbis is organizing these webinars as a sort of promotion of its services and to spread the knowledge also for training purposes. Today we'll talk about the PVC price trends at global level, talk a little bit about the ChemOrbis activities in general. We will go through the logistic issues and then crunch the data for import, export, and price forecast as well, and drive some conclusions. So let's see who ChemOrbis is. For those who don't know us, ChemOrbis is a company reporting market information on polymers and feedstocks. Excuse me. And we do this by 2001, so 20 years anniversary this year. For those who know us through conferences, trading platforms, yes, please mute. It's important that you find the quality of the information and the timeliness of the information very reliable on our website. And since we collect the information by interviewing a lot of companies, either converters in the majority, but also sellers, traders, converters, producers, we rely on a very neutrality policy. We don't take any part in the transactions that take place when we are reported those. So neutrality is very important to gain the trust and to report reliable information on our service. Having said that, let's move to the presentation itself on the PVC. Let's see what happened in 2020. Pandemic effects were very heavy. COVID-19 slowed the economy basically to a halt in Q2, and Q1 started in 2020. We saw that oil and raw material, because of that, started to lose ground. And all during the year 2020, they were low and stable mostly. Plastic volumes instead reported little losses over the year. Overall, we talk about 4 or 5%. Also because in the second half of 2020, we had a very strong recovery of the economy. Usually in 2020, margins of polymers producers were low, and the polymers prices touched minimums and were very volatile. The minimums were touched particularly during April, May 2020. What shall we look at 2021 and what few months we still miss of the year, and particularly for 2022? There is still undergoing strong recovery of the economy driven by packaging sector, building and construction, and before it was automotive when there was no crisis for the microchips. Now automotive is a bit in a halt. There is a stronger limited availability of polymers, but also other materials. Actually, for the polymers, we have quite a good supply, and for other materials more critical. I'm talking about metal, steel, paper, wood, and other materials who are also touching historical price highs. In the combination of this situation, there are high logistic costs, which make things more difficult, and we'll see later on what this means and the impact on the imports volumes as well. We have seen as a result that EU, since during 2020, EU had lowest prices in the world for polymers. It was not an attractive market to export to, even with the limitations of the logistics. So Europe suffered a lot, the reduced availability of polymers. Okay. I hope you can hear me. Now, We saw also during 2021 an increase in oil and raw material prices, particularly for oil and energy. There is the issue of some shortage as well in other parts of the world, but this is driving the oil prices very high. We will see also later in the presentation how the trend of the energy prices instead is foreseen downwards in 2022. In 2021, polymer prices touched historical highs. Some of the polymers are still growing, like PVC. And of course, this has an impact on financial credit lines of the companies. Imagine a converter buying 1,000 tons of the same polymer. In 2020, it was a certain impact. To this year is double. So it's an issue. And I mentioned already, in some areas, there are energy crises, particularly in Far East China. Some productions are stopped on purpose, and some producers are already asking for a price, energy price surcharge, also in Europe, by the way. Now let's see the polymer prices, how they evolved in the period January 2020 until end of September 2021, a few weeks ago. In this chart, we can see the China prices for PVC K 67, 68. I reported here the yellow line, which is the local price for China, ex-warehouse, main city, versus the import price. It's interesting, like you see, minimum is touched in 2020 May, and maximum was touched, well, maximum is still growing, so not really worth mentioning it. But remember for later, when we will talk about import-export, you see in certain periods, like spring of 2021, second quarter 2021, the import prices were above the local prices. Of course, this correlates with the minimum of imports in that period, because they were not incentivized, and also because prices were growing in nearby regions like India, Southeast Asia, and so on. Many who could export, they exported. So we will see when we analyze the import-export for China. In this chart, instead, we see the import and local price for K67, 68 for Turkey. You see the import prices is the blue line. It's always below the local. And apparently, in Turkey, we now have the highest price in the world for PVC, for a combination of factors which we will cover when we talk about the forecast also for next year. And finally, Europe. I correlated the Euro prices, still PVC K67, 68, January 2020 until September 2021. I correlated the prices with the monomer price, ethylene. And you can see that since basically the second quarter of 2021, the two products follow a different path. So it means the polymer price is totally unrelated to the monomer price like it was before. So it's a different situation of supply-demand issues, not related instead to the monomer price. And finally, I combined the three prices together: Europe, still the blue line, with Turkey and China, same time frame, of course. And as you can see, since July, it was touched the minimum in those countries, Far East and Middle East, Turkey, but the prices are recovering very fast, mainly because of the very strong demand from certain regions like India, Southeast Asia, and so on, and also in China. Because of the government's subventions, they are pushing for a strong recovery, and there is high demand of PVC. And of course, this combined with a lot of maintenances, shutdowns, and limited number of new capacities starting up. So it is a combination that is giving these prices historical highs. Why the logistic cost increased in 2020? Well, is again due to the pandemic, COVID-19 crisis. Basically, when the global trading slowed down in Q1, Q2, 2020, the forwarders, what they did was to reduce the number of ships available to stabilize their costs. But this took them a little bit unprepared when the economy started back again to grow in the second half of 2020. As a result of that, there was basically the spot prices of the containers fees increased by 3, 4, 5 times, so that practically it was not possible to move polymers, particularly from Far East to Europe. It would cost $600, $700, $500 per ton, which is making the price not feasible, of course. Of course, strongly the import volumes are strongly affected, reduced, making the local supply even more critical for Europe. We think, though, that the return to logistic prices, standardized, normalized, should come as a result of the improved situation towards during the first half of 2022. And I explain you why in the next slide. The issue of the logistic cost increase is not related to an increase in demand. Of course, there is a strong recovery everywhere. We talk about 6-5% globally as GDP growth in 2021. But as you can see here, the graph, which is courtesy of McKinsey, shows from January 2019 until July 2021, the available capacity of containers that is present on the market at a given time. It is expressed in million TEU, which is 20 food equivalent units. And as you can see, there are some major things happening here, reported here, which make a decrease of the total capacity. So, for example, this is the China New Year. In 2020, when COVID was about to start. This is the COVID situations. But then during the end of 2020 and particularly in 2021, because of the measures the countries were taking to control the spreading of the pandemic, basically it caused a congestion in ports. So major China port, worldwide China port, basically is frozen for a month. So it means all the ships that are there, they cannot travel anywhere else. It means also containers are frozen. So there is less capacity available, and dramatically less. And also you can see, remember the ship that was trapped in the Suez Canal. See how big was the impact, even if it took only a couple of weeks or so of issues. So the thing is, there is a growth in demand, of course, because of the economy, but the real issue is the availability of sailing capacity, and caused by the pandemic congestions of the ports. You have seen the Los Angeles port working intervention by the president of the US, because they know it is the issue. Of course, the other thing is that the shipping companies, they are building new capacities, but before you finish, you commission a new ship, container ship, to when it is available, it lasts at least 18 months, so 1.5 years. And many are investing, of course, in this sector. So we should see an improvement of the sailing capacity very, very soon, but that will be given by the improvement of the pandemic situations more than the real extra capacity. And also another factor that will influence the logistic issue is the fact that during 2022, there is still a forecast of growth of the economy, but it's lower than 2021. So it will grow still, but at a lower pace. So let's see now the import-export for Europe for PVC. From, again, January 2021 it's data reported monthly until July 2020, January 2020 until July 2021. The yellow bars are the exports, and because Europe is a major exporter for PVC, as you know, we have extra capacity that we can devote to exports. And interesting, and this is the line of the average prices for imports. As you can see, during already the second part of 2020, prices were going up and never stopped basically since then, making some 16, 17, 18 months in a row of increases. Interestingly, when prices of European market are becoming higher, they attract more imports. And you can see that imports are growing since January steadily, although not to the previous levels. This is the China part. You remember the graph I showed you before on the prices. Import prices were higher than local prices during this period here, and you see it coincides with the minimum of imports. The imports here are still blue, and it coincides with the major export situation for China. This is Turkey. Turkey is very unbalanced market for the supply issue, because it is a market very dependent on the imports from everywhere, from the US, from Europe mostly, but also from the Far East in some cases. US and Mexico, I would say, not only US. And as you can see, unfortunately for Turkey, the latest trend for imports is slowing down, and this is coinciding with a very strong economy growth, and is making very critical the supply situation. That's why prices are touching historical highs in Turkey in these days, and also for 2022 is not an easy solution, of course. And you can see the exports are very limited. Globally, what are I mentioned before, the plant shutdowns and maintenances and so on. And in ChemOrbis, we have a tool that is called Production News Pro that allows you to see in different areas what are the missing tons, how many of them are missing. And as missing is a sum of the shutdowns for maintenances plus the lower rates. And as you can see, the minimum was for the last 6 months, 6 plus 6 minus months, or since the month of October. And you can see the critical period was September. We are improving the situation nowadays. And as of now, we don't have major shutdowns foreseen for 2022. We have a list of new capacities as well, which are impacting on the supply. They are mostly based in North Asia, Americas, you see the black part, and Southeast Asia and India. Of course, the sum of this plus the new capacities is the balance that is basically region by region, saying if we are short of supply or the supply is comfortable. And as you can see, also for Europe, the supply should become positive since the end of 2021, and for all regions improve in 2022. This is very interesting, because if the supply is there, then thanks to the easing of the logistics situation, prices will start to turn down. Finally, the last part of the presentation is regarding what we foresee for the coming 12 months. So we consider 2 factors in our model, the medium long term and the short term ones, where the medium long term are those who are, let's say, affecting the prices after 3 months and more, of course. And these are the oil futures, the energy futures, the new capacities build up, of course, the seasonality, and the GDP. GDP can be split down to region or even to country level. The short term are many more factors, of course, and they can be affecting the supply-demand situation in different ways. Think about the currency, the monomer prices, the margins, the demand expectation, the trust index of consumers, and so on. But at any given time, we have realized that only 2 or 3 of these these short-term factors are giving the real importance. So it's like the Pareto rule: 2-3 count for 80% of the effect. But now let's see the practical result. The first is the energy forecast. This is the EIA forecast that we use in our model. It is of a couple of weeks ago, so it's really up to date. And as you can see, we report here WTI and Brent oil prices and natural gas. And as you can see, despite the energy crunch that there is in some areas, the forecast is for growth until November, or let's say the year end, and then a steady downhill for all the oil and natural gas, although they still remain above the $60 per barrel level, particularly for the oil. Now, the reason why the forecast is like that is that, of course, there will be a stronger demand driven by the economic growth, but the economy growth will be slower, as I said to you before, in 2022. And of course, the forecast is based on the fact that particularly the non-OPEC producers will provide more volumes of oil available during 2022. Therefore, the supply will be comfortable and prices will start to go down. I also show you the result on the PVC prices, what we foresee. These are the first 3 months historical prices, then from October is the forecast. Now, this is, imagine that we have a 7-8 pages report with many information there, lists of plant shutdowns and margins analysis and so on. But this is the result. So, but the full report is 7-8 pages. So I'm showing you only the end, a synthetic result of what we see as a price evolution. So there will still be, according to our model, a growth of prices until December for PVC, and then, because of the logistics improvement, the supply situation of imports will improve, and also the extra capacity will bring some relief to the supply globally. Although, as you can see, prices, according to us, will stay to very high levels, okay? Above 1,500 euros per ton. Imagine until last year, PVC was below 1,000. Now, the thing is that you should consider these prices as not as absolute prices, but as average prices and month-to-month variations. That is important. They are very close to the market prices, but please be warned about this. We move now to the Asia prices for PVC. As you can see, we have 3 lines here. We have China, we have Southeast Asia, and we have India. The India price is this one. This is driven basically by the economic situation, the supply shortages, and so on. And this is the China price. As you can see, there will be a little relief already starting probably in December, but prices, according to us, will remain high because of the unbalanced supply-demand situation, mostly driven by demand and short supply. And this is the forecast for Turkey. As you can see, very strong increases nowadays. These are dollars per ton until December, and eventually there will be some relief. But according to our model, prices will stay very high, probably in the first part for sure, 2022, for the easing of the logistics, so better imports and so on, but still very unbalanced supply situation. So to come to some conclusions, PVC is becoming a very expensive polymer, but that is due to supply-demand strongly unbalanced situation at global level, driven by also a very strong demand. And this is leading to record high prices for PVC. We should see some easing of imports in 2022, particularly in the second part in Europe, but also in Turkey as well, for the factors I told you before, because of the improved logistic costs. Of course, if prices of PVC will still grow, we should take some concerns on material replacement. Material replacement for PVC is not so easy because some applications are designed just for imagine like the windows and so on, but other like pipes or so, they could be replaced with other products like PE, for example. Price volatility will remain very high because a change in supply, change in the energy forecast and so on will impact immediately on the prices. So with this, I have finished. I will be happy to take your questions if you have any. I'm sure you have. So when you make a question, please tell who you are if you speak, or we will use the chat.
I have some questions from the chat. So Alain Michel is asking, do you think that a lot of suppliers will apply an energy surcharge, are currently asked by one in the moment?
They are, yes. And I think it will become very general question by all suppliers. It is real, it's founded on real situation, although big converters will have an upside. Even when the supply is short, big converters still have a power of negotiation. So let's say that the smaller to medium converters will pay 100% of what they ask, the bigger probably less. That's my opinion, of course.
So from Suryadi Tia, asking, a rising price of PVC resin seems like already planned. Is it because manufacturers were suffering for many years, so they want to get profit as much as possible at this moment?
No, I think it's it's not related to PVC manufacturer, but it's general for polymers, for all materials that we talked about before. The thing about PVC, you have to take in account, I didn't mention in my presentation, but the energy part of the PVC production plays a very important role in the final costs, so up to 60% or so, if I'm not mistaken. So when they are hit with higher energy prices in these days, they have real pain. So that's why the producer, the manufacturer of PVC, they are so pushy. They were the first to ask for the energy surcharge to converters.
Then from Cedar Aydin, many thanks for your valued info. What about EPVC? Do you have any info?
Unfortunately, as ChemOrbis, we don't follow emulsion grades, but I think the situation of prices is very, very similar. So the price trend should, and the energy concern, extra costs and so on are the same. There you have basically smaller market in terms of volumes. So I think in terms of supply, it shouldn't be so critical like SPVC. But yeah, I don't have precise data to share. I can share the import exports and so on later on. If you want to ask me offline, I will be happy to do that.
From Agnes Pokcik, do you think US material is expected in Q1 2022 in Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. And about US, there is also another important fact that, well, first, the dollar is strengthening, so this should be put an obstacle to the imports. So not making so convenient to the US to export like in places like Europe. The thing is, though, that US have a very low cost ethylene derived from their natural gas position and so on. So they can suffer a squeeze of their margin. So I strongly believe that US exports, Mexican exports will be very, very strong and gaining share in 2022. But remember, Europe is an exporter as well. So maybe the US are sending there are extra volumes towards other regions like Turkey, Middle East, and so on, and not so much in Europe. Not wanting to start a price wars with the European suppliers, which many times are also combined in joint ventures and so on. So US, yes, they will be exporting a lot of PVC because of their cost situation, and think about ethylene low cost and also energy low cost for them. So they are very strong in cost. In costs, so they can push a lot for the export.
From Kegan Govender, given the high PVC resin price, at what point does PVC become uncompetitive for its use? The high price of resin and plasticizers could well lead to replacement of other polymers.
Well, definitely. I'm sure there are, well, I know big converters making pipes, for example. It depends on the application in the end. But for the pipes, you really need to see the cost of the pipe given a certain diameter per meter. In the end, that's what the final cost is important. And because of the difference in density, PVC pipes are much heavier. So it's really down to calculation. But remember, PE is not any cheaper either. So you really have to go down. I think, though, that if PVC prices will go up beyond the 1,800 euros or $2,000 per ton, there will be a serious consideration for those who make pipes. Remember that those who make pipes, they usually make both PVC and PE, so they can easily shift according to their convenience and also to their customers' convenience. For other applications, really, you cannot replace PVC. Think of the windows profiles and so on. These are basically designed for PVC, and you cannot replace it. So they will have to endure, fortunately, higher prices.
So I received another direct message. So as far as I can see, PVC prices seem to be higher in Turkey than in Italy. At the moment, do they?
Absolutely. Absolutely, they are much higher. I can show you rapidly if you want. Analysis tool price wizard. You can select several: China, Italy, and Turkey. You can see the local prices and the import, and then we select Italy, we select chief China, chief Turkey, and also, yeah, the series, quick chart, and then I select so as you can see, the yellow price is the Turkish, yeah, this series here, and at the moment is reported at $2,245. Okay, it is the import price, right? If you want the local, I can also show you the local, but we might be careful about if there is a VAT or not. Let me check. VAT included, have VAT excluded. And then too many, I take out China, for example. Yeah, you can see this is the import, and the red is the local price. It's really very high levels. It's totally unbalanced situation, crazy situation in Turkey. Yeah. Any other questions, Rebecca?
Yeah, there are a few questions from the chat. So from Louis Linford, how important will Russia and the CIS market be in PVC markets in 2022, as far as supply and demand fundamentals?
I think Russia is going to play an important role, not only for PVC but also for other polymers. They have less logistic issues, lower transfer costs and so on, and extra capacity to use. So I think Russia will grow their shares of exports in Turkey market, maybe to a less extent in Europe, but definitely yes, Russia is going to grow their shares in the nearby countries, and particularly in Turkey as well.
Then from Dai, refer to the price forecast in Europe and Asia. European price will continue to decrease through 2022, while the price in Asia, India will continue to the firmly level. What factors will support the price in Asia, particularly in China?
Well, it's the forecast that we issued is basically saying that there will be a little downturn in the first quarter, but eventually the strong unbalanced situation of supply demand will be in favor of maintaining very high prices. So it means basically there is a strong economy recovery, not only in China, but also in the nearby regions. And therefore, whatever China had available for the imports and so on will not be there anymore for them, because it's going to countries like Turkey or India or so that are paying higher levels. And this is also taking in account for China, particularly the fact that PVC is an energivore, is a strong production, it's making strong consumption of energy to be made, electrolysis and so on. And therefore, if there is a choice of the government to penalize one production or the other of polymers, it will be probably to PVC, which is impacting a lot on the consumption of energy, the production. So taking this in account, but mostly the supply limitations and strong demand, this will maintain the prices at high level in China and also in the nearby countries. Whereas in Europe, I think the imports will help a lot to move down prices. Although, as you remember, we talk about prices that are historical highs, still 1,500, 1,400, also for euros per ton, even in Europe. So very high level. I hope we meet in a year time and we analyze our forecast together and see what happened in the meantime.
From Kegan Govander, I think it's related to the question before. So how about replacement of PVC cable to XPLE? What is your view?
To PLE, I'm really unprepared here. I know. You can replace cable production with PE, probably not flammable PE grades. PLE, I don't know what it stands for. But yeah, I mean, same thing that we considerations broadly. I mean, I'm not an expert in wire production and coating and so on, but whatever we made as a consideration for the pipes, it falls also. It's valid also for the wires. In the end, you have to comply to certain regulations. And in the end, you sell the wire per meter. That's or per kilogram of copper, let's say, which is the most important expensive part, by the way. So let's use the same considerations that we use for pipes. So product replacement is possible also for wires, and most of wire producers, they are also using other grades, not only PVC, definitely. So the replacement is something easy, relatively easy for them.
Okay, another question directly to me from Alain. Do you think a risk of ban with the possible change of ROHS? ROHS.
Can you repeat, please?
Do you a risk of ban with the possible change of ROHS?
No, Ross, I know what it is, but the risk of ban, I don't know what's the question related. Maybe we can move to the further one and then go back to the question.
Okay, from Arna. Many thanks for your presentation. So how do you see any new capacity addition by the major PVC manufacturers? How about plasticizer price? Is this going to follow the trend of PVC in 2022? How about the energy surcharge by the European PVC manufacturers? So too many questions. So it's all.
Let's start new capacities we have seen in the presentation, divided by areas as well. There is a strong build in Asia again and America. Okay, because of the cost position and because you build plants nearby where there is the consumption for logistics issues and so on. So there is a new build, and it's important. It's for PVC, which is considered in the past as a polymer that is not so noble or whatever, but every year is growing. I think plasticizers, they are not based on the same chemistry. So plasticizers will follow a different trend, probably because of the supply demand inherent to their building blocks, which are down to glycols and other stuff. So it really depends on the dynamics of supply demand there. But of course, yeah, plasticizers are mostly used in PVC, so it might follow the same trend, although not strictly directly. And the other part, the last part of the question, I forgot.
How about the energy surcharge by the European PVC manufacturers? ChemOne has already implemented the same.
Yeah, I think it's very evident that ChemOne started, but many others are following through. Not only for PVC, this is happening also for other polymers. And you may wonder why, if there is a PVC, an energy crunch in China, it's an impact in Europe. But you have to look at the oil prices and think how the fuel we pay for our cars is immediately increased when you go to the service station. So this is what is happening these days. For the producers, they are trying to transfer their costs, extra costs for energy and also for raw materials to down the supply chain, of course.
A question from Yukari Yoshizawa. What's your outlook for PVC global demand growth rate from now on, for example, 2021, 22, 23?
Well, we don't have a precise, let's say, demand growth, but I can tell you, since PVC is strictly linked to the building and construction industry, and therefore the global GDP growth, which is an important part for building and construction, actually, the other way around. But yeah, so you can consider globally 4-5% growth of demand, steady for the next 3 years. Globally, in some regions more, in some regions less. But.
So the last question from the chat from Laila. Why the production of PVC foil for thermoforming is so bad in Europe? I only found it in Hungary. I have problems with purchasing PVC foil.
It's very, very specific. I cannot answer that. I know in Italy there are a lot of PVC foil producers, but I don't know if they are having troubles, having supply issues as well. So I don't know. I should investigate maybe with my colleagues if there is a specific issue there. So I'm sorry, I cannot answer that.
Another question from Arna. Is the PVC price trend that you showed in your presentation based in Italy, or is this generic European trend?
Sorry, can you tell it again, please? Will we see?
Okay. Is the PVC price trend that you showed in your presentation based in Italy, or is this generic European trend?
It's Europe. Europe, mostly North Europe. We report in ChemOrbis, since we started first in Italy because we know Italy within Europe is the more dynamic, more spot market and so on. So when we started operations in ChemOrbis in 2006, we selected Italy as a country of starting our services. And therefore, when we started to cover Europe by the year 2009, and so we said, should we report all together as an index Europe or leave Italy aside and report both? We selected the second because we think that Italy, being the very hot spot market, is something different. It's worth having separate. Since we could do that, we report it separate. But for the sake of the forecast, it's the North Europe price that we report.
A question from Kegan Govander. Do you think we will see prices pre-2020 level again?
Well, it's valid for not only PVC, but for polymers in general and for other materials as well. It's in our industry, we are talking about commodities, so it's all down to supply-demand situation. Once there will be oversupply, prices will go down, no problem. Maybe also to levels that were historical lows, but of course they cannot be sustainable. Therefore, there has to be an in-between cost-correlated price that has to be maintained. Okay. So yes, prices will go down to the previous level, maybe not as low as, but definitely it's all down to supply demand.
From Lip Pink, from your presentation, we understand that PVC prices would soften down from the first quarter and on. Would you think the price will go up again like 2021 after storm and so on?
Well, 2021 was a very particular year, is a very particular year for a combination of factors, the pandemic that caused other issues, logistics, and so on. So you can never say no, but it's highly unlikely, although whatever, I mean, there is a geopolitical tension. This will impact immediately on the oil prices. Everybody wants to go away from the oil. Everybody wants clean energy and so on, but still the oil is very, very important. You cannot shift to other energies so easily, so fast and so on. So whatever will create an issue, an imbalance in the supply of oil, it will be heavily impacting on prices. So the pandemic is another factor. So fortunately, we have every 80 or 100 years. So for eventually, that will not bother us anymore. But yeah, in short terms, it's not likely to happen. Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, from the chat. What could be the trends for PE waxes prices used in PVC applications from Europe and other countries?
That's too specific. We don't follow PE waxes, so that's too difficult. I don't know. I cannot answer. Sorry. but probably PE waxes are related to PE prices. So they are special grades, so it depends really. You are out of the supply-demand situation there. It's mostly specialties. So
no more. No, there is another question. It appears that PVC prices will never go back to 2019 level, at least in the near future. It will remain stable at a high end in Q1 of 2022. Do you think more import from US will ease the situation?
absolutely, that's a key factor. And remember that the US would have brought more volumes already in 2021, but there were issues of the logistics, there were issues of bad weather and other situations that caused the exporters from North America not to increase their volumes, but definitely they are based on a let's say very low cost base for both raw materials and energy. So we shall see that effect already in 2022.
From Jana from Kifra. As you forecast constant growth for PVC consumption in 2022, what is the reason of your forecast of lower prices in 2022?
Well, it's related to what I said before. It means that the supply situation is improving, and is improving because the imports will be there. There will be no logistic hurdles and so on, and there will be more new capacities, not exactly in Europe, but if there is a new capacity in another country, nearby regions or whatever, it means they don't need the imports they needed before. So those imports volumes will find a home in another country. And the imports volume, we mentioned briefly during my presentation, the netback principle, which very easy. I mean, netback is what stays in the pockets of a seller, supplier, when you deduct all costs. So when you want to sell 1,000 tons of PVC, you watch which markets are giving the best returns and the lower cost for you. And that means that if Europe is staying, or Turkey is staying a very high level of prices, it will attract the imports. The exporters will bring their volumes wherever they get the best returns. And this is also happening very, very rapidly. So the problem now is the logistics. Once we solve the logistics, then prices should be not, let's say, influenced by other factors than supply demand.
From Arnab, just hope that no hurricane Ida or Suez Canal fiasco appear again in 2022, and
Yeah,
we see a stable PVC market. So many thanks for all your inputs from Arnab. And yeah, there are no other questions from the chat. Maybe someone wants to switch on the microphone and do it directly, some question.
Or even comments, and they're not necessarily a question. If you want, you're welcome. So I think nobody's willing to ask or comment anymore. We thank you all for your patience to stay with us and for your contribution with the nice questions and so on. But now we can stop the recording.